Hello and welcome to Forever Blue Shirts TV. I'm your host, Stephen Pappas, with creator of Forever Blue Shirts, Anthony Scultori. And Anthony, usually we have some cool names, Stefan Matteau or Colin Stevenson. Unfortunately, just us today.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone, but we'll have to make do with this. I guess we're going to call this like a bit of a season wrap up and a look ahead, right?
Yeah, it's something that we probably are making a little bit sooner than we would have thought, as obviously the conference finals are still going on. Game one, well, I guess game one and game two were technically last night for the Eastern Conference. Wouldn't wish four overtimes on any fan base, but that was a fun one. But let's get into it. The big news, obviously, of the offseason that started, the Rangers and Gerard Gallant mutually parting ways early in May, meaning the Rangers. They are in the market for a new head coach after 2 years with Gerard Gallant, and it seems like every available, non-available coach has their name to fill this void. Who's your number one choice if you had to take one guy right now to fill this position on Broadway?
Honestly, to me, when you say mutually part ways, that's always hysterical to me. It's like you're fired.
Yeah.
Well, I quit. All right, we'll just say
Yeah.
we mutually agreed to part ways. Honestly, I don't believe that this really couldn't have been a worse time to try and to have to fire a coach and try and find a new one. I will say, just by looking at the field, the safest choice and the one that I think that is the one that makes the most sense is Peter Laviolette. And not that Peter Laviolette has done anything of consequence since he won a cup with the Carolina Hurricanes way back when. I can't even remember the last time he won a playoff series. His team just missed the playoffs. I don't want to fault him for that, but they were old, they were injured. Capitals had their issues, and they just missed. So it is what it is. I think Laviolette is I think he's the logical choice. I know that we just have a report now from Elliot Friedman that the Rangers have been granted permission to speak with Maple Leafs assistant Spencer Carberry. And I like that young coach, but he's got no NHL experience. I don't know how you fire Gerard Gallant. You tell everyone you're going to win a Stanley Cup, and then you're going to put all your chips into a coach with no NHL experience. That's why Chris Knoblauch seems like a great choice. And maybe they do something like that. I don't know. But I'll have to say this. How much say does Glenn Sather still have as James Dolan's advisor? How much say does he have in this? He had a say in the firing of Davidson and Gorton. The whole thing with Mike Babcock, it sounds like it might have been his idea. Who knows? But the bottom line is that's a question that not enough people I think are asking, because I think he's more old school than Chris Drury, who's a more modern day GM. But that's my thoughts. Who do you think? Who's your choice?
Yeah, you went the safe option. I'm going to go the little bit more fiery options. You got 1 year of NHL head coach experience. I'm going Andrew Brunette, who's the associate head coach with the New Jersey Devils. Obviously, it seems a little bit unlikely that the Devils are just going to sit there, and it sounds like they are going to keep Lindy Ruff as their head coach. But it does seem a little unlikely that the Devils are going to sit there and, you just beat them in the playoffs, this huge rivalry, and say, you know what, we got this guy behind the bench and we'll let you talk to him. But, in his 2 seasons as a head coach and associate head coach, one with the Panthers last year, the interim tag, obviously, after Joel Quenneville left, and the associate head coach with the Devils this year, his teams are 103, 40, and 14. That's a point percentage of just over 700. And then you look at the analytics and where the Rangers really struggled this year at 5-on-5. The Devils this season, second in the NHL expected goals at 5-on-5. The Panthers, second a year ago when they won the President's Trophy at expected goals at 5-on-5. The Panthers and Devils did something that the Rangers have refused to do over the last 2 years, and especially under Gerard Gallant, and that's get to the high danger chances and just create high danger opportunities. The Panthers and Devils, both with Andrew Brunette as their head coach, in the top 5 in their respective seasons. I believe the Rangers finished no higher than 25th, and I think this year they finished 30th in high danger scoring chances. That's according to Money Puck. So I truly believe that Andrew Brunette makes the Rangers better in areas that they need to get better without compromising where they already are a good team.
Not a bad choice. Honestly, I don't know if he'll get the permission to speak with the Rangers. I don't know if the Rangers will go into enemy territory, and I'm not sure that they're going to be willing to help each other out in any way, shape, or form anytime soon, especially after getting knocked out. So Brunette, listen, Andrew Brunette sounds like a good choice. I still think at the end of the day, Laviolette gets the job. And that would be kind of a little bit of a homecoming for Laviolette. I don't know how many folks know, but Laviolette was undrafted, and he actually did play in the NHL. He played 12 games with the New York Rangers back in the, I think, 88-89 season, if I recall.
Yeah, I'll give you credit. It's a safe option for a reason because it'll most likely happen. I like to go out there and go think outside the box. But looking back at this season, obviously the struggles to start the year, Jacob Trouba's helmet toss, and the eventual resurgence of this team, the red hot streak that they found themselves from December to March. Just your overall assessment of this team, and if you're a school teacher, what letter grade are you giving the Rangers this year?
That's such a hard one, right? Because it's so disappointing. So you want to kind of remove yourself from the disappointment and just trying to assess it. I mean, I think you have to have a comparison, right? And to compare them against themselves last year, when no one expected them to make the run that they did, and then making that run, I don't think that's fair either. So I think you have to kind of look at the NHL this year as a whole and try and figure it out. And to be honest, if somebody would have told me that the Rangers, Bruins, and the Colorado Avalanche would all be eliminated in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, I would have said, you're out of your mind. And I probably would have used more colorful language. But the truth of the matter is that's what took place. And, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Dallas Stars, not shocking that they're in the Western Conference Finals. Carolina Hurricanes, not too shocking to me, although considering some of the other teams I thought were better than them, yeah, it's a little surprising, not much. The Florida Panthers, though, it's just like, wow, this is totally blowing my mind. But when I look at the Rangers, goaltending still fantastic. Obviously, we knew it wasn't going to be as good as the year before. He won the Vezina. I think offensively they were decent, somewhat disappointing at times. I think too many, maybe there were too many chefs in the kitchen. Ultimately, I think Gallant knew probably he was going to be fired by the time that series was over, based off of the reports that came out that there was a shouting match between he and Drury. And when he made that comment, when somebody asked the question, this was one of the most talented rosters ever assembled the Rangers had, and do you feel like this is a missed opportunity? And he basically said, yeah. He goes, talent doesn't. I think he said talent doesn't mean anything. Talent doesn't mean nothing. It's like, if you don't want to forecheck and there's no hard work, it doesn't. He's like, sure, I love to have talent, but if you're not going to do the work, and that, when you talk about roster construction, is a direct shot at Chris Drury and whoever makes those decisions. So I think I give them a B, because I thought, they were only a couple of points off from the season before. The playoffs are a disappointment. Obviously, they went 7 games. It's not that they lost in 7 games. It's how they were no-shows in three of those games, that probably others would probably give them an F or a D. But I have to look at it and say, Hedl had a career season. He's coming along. Kakko had 40 points. He's starting to look like a better player. There's more they need out of Loff. There's no doubt about it. Alexis Lafreniere has to do better. Keandre Miller had a career season, right? Trouba was rock solid. Fox was fantastic, got Norris consideration. It was an utter disappointment to me in the playoffs. After the way he started the playoffs, probably not enough people are talking about how disappointing he was the rest of the way, because I still can't wrap my head around what he did in Game 7 shorthanded. I can't believe he was that nonchalant and careless with the puck and got stripped, and that was the goal. That was it. Once they scored that, it was over. It was the middle of the game, and it was over. I just was like, I was dejected. I was like, I think the Rangers was just like, I can't believe this is it. So I'll give them a B. You are more on the analytic side. I more eye test guy. What would you say?
all I'm going to say is I'm glad we're doing this, 2 or 3 weeks after the season ended and not the night of, because I probably would have said F minus, F double minus, the lowest grade that you could possibly give somebody. But given some time to think about it, I'll go a little bit below you. I'm going to give him just a straight C, C plus, no C minus, just a straight C, especially with the expectations that came into this season. A lot of people thought that the Rangers could take a step back from last year with how successful that they were, 52 wins and all that. They, kind of did, but not really. They were still a team that was challenging for the top five in the league for most of the season. But I think if you want to look at this Rangers season, you need to look at other teams that have won the Stanley Cup in the past. So Washington, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Colorado. All of them have had their fair share of, playoff hardships and struggles before it got to them finally winning the Stanley Cup. Very rarely do you see a team just step in year two of what they have as a retool or rebuild, and with 1 year of playoff experience, go in and win 16 games and win the Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, it takes some time. It takes years like this where you just feel so dejected at the end of the playoffs that your team couldn't get out of the first round. I mean, you talked about Gerard Gallant talking about talent not winning, and if the effort's not there, look at the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, they have the two best players objectively on the planet right now, and they went to the conference final the same as the Rangers last year, got out of the first round this year, but they're a much better team than probably a second round or third round exit. They should be expecting to win Stanley Cups, and they had a lot of disappointment this year. So if you're going to learn, especially as a Ranger fan, to manage expectations, you don't just win right away. And I'm a guy that is very hard to get I would say, a good grade out of this, because I'm very technical and I scrutinize a lot. But I do think that at some points this season, the Rangers really showed that they are a team that can compete for a Stanley Cup in the near future. That being said, obviously this offseason is going to be a huge litmus test for what this future, this team's going to be. They have some guys they got to sign. They have some guys that they don't have to sign. That's part of being a GM and making decisions that are for people that get paid a lot more than we do.
Yep.
But also at this time, at points of this season, the Rangers felt like they were just going through the motions. They, were just waiting for the playoffs to come and figured they could just turn it on. And for 2 games in the postseason, they were able to just turn it on. But, unfortunately, they ran into a team that, was a better team, was, better structured. And honestly, a team that really played into the Rangers' weaknesses. I think the Devils' speed was something that at the start of the series you looked at as a major issue, and kind of got blinded by it through the first 2 games because the Rangers were able to completely neutralize it. Whether they did it or the Devils did it to themselves, is something to be seen. But I won't say it was a complete failure of a season. I won't say it was a complete success of a season. I'll go straight in the middle with a solid C year.
Sounds fair to me. I couldn't argue with the grade. That's the best way I could say. I can't argue with the grade.
Well, just mentioned the fact that, the Rangers got to sign some guys. They got 3 really important RFAs coming up this offseason in K'Andre Miller, Alexis Lafreniere, and Zach Jones. I know you wrote something about it. I believe it was this week. What kind of deals do you see these 3 players getting?
That is extremely interesting, right? So I think when it comes to what Chris Drury has to deal with, right? And I wrote on foreverblueshirts.com, not only about the RFAs, but the UFAs. I think what he needs to do is first say, okay, I've only have under 12 million and I've got 14 players signed. So I've got 11 million to deal with. I mean, before the playoffs, I thought K'Andre Miller was going to get a pretty significant contract. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Lafreniere definitely isn't going to get anything big. We're talking 1-2 year deals. Honestly, I think that's where the Rangers are going to have to, they need to kind of be there with those guys. They are going to have to take a risk of somebody maybe possibly attempting an offer sheet. Anybody who attempts an offer sheet with Alexi Lafreniere, I would say the only team I can envision doing that is the Vancouver Canucks, because his former agent is assistant GM there, right? So that's a possibility. I don't know what number that is that they feel they could do and get away with. I'm sure if there's anyone who in management who believes in him as a player, will be his former agent. So let's keep that as a potential option out there. I just don't think many teams are going to do that. Regardless of that fact, the Rangers are in control here. These are RFAs with no arbitration rights. So the Rangers need to try and get 1-2 year deals. They probably won't get more than 2 years from each one of these players, because they're going to want to cash in sooner rather than later. So I would believe they would bet on themselves as well. So let's just go 2 years for both Loff and Miller. And let's go Miller around 3, maybe 3.5, and let's go Lafreniere around 2.5, right? But even so, you're looking at $5 million. That's half your cap space. You've got 16 players signed. You need a backup. You need another defenseman, which maybe Jones is the answer there, and he probably wouldn't cost more than $1 million. He's got no leverage either. And no, I don't think there's going to be trade demand. He's not Nils Lundkvist. So you got him. And then what are you going to do? Tyler Mott supposedly wants to come back. That's a UFA that I think you have to sign. You have to get him to come back, especially if you're going to try and find some more cap room by getting rid of the only veteran player with a significant cap hit that doesn't have a full no move clause is Barclay Goodrow. And the Rangers need more Barclay Goodrows than less. But again, he makes $3.6 million for several more seasons. I mean, you salary dump him, you wrap up a pick to have somebody take him on that fits in his 12-team no trade, right? And you get a couple extra bucks. You sign Mott, that kind of is his replacement. You have Vesey. You bring up Will Cooley, who I thought was very good. You put him on the fourth line. He's cost controlled at under $1 million. And you figure out, is there a mid-tier UFA that you can get to maybe round out that third line on the wing? And the first name that comes to mind, and I know you didn't ask, and if I'm going ahead of you, I apologize. But hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a reunion with Jesper Fast?
Yeah, I will say you are definitely going ahead, because that is the next point that we're going to get to. So I'm glad you got your guy out there. We'll see in the next couple of minutes if you could think of another guy as well, because I'm going to ask you if you got another guy as well. But now. Naturally, when you're talking about Miller, Lafreniere, and Zach Jones in that order, I'm going to start with Zach Jones. And I think, you're obviously spot on. I think the one by one, I think for all three of these guys, naturally, if whatever year they're going to get, I think the AAV is going to match the year, which that being said, it's probably nowhere between more than 1 or 2 for either of these guys. But Zach Jones is a guy that, is probably going to make $1 million next year. I wouldn't hate seeing him the third pair, at least to start the year. And if that's the case, your third pair makes a combined $2.5 million, and are both under 23 years old in Braden Schneider and Zach Jones. So there's, unless there's a free agent pickup that they're going to go and get and bolster that bottom six, or the sixth defenseman with a more veteran player, I would not hate to see Zach Jones sitting there. It's a cost-effective player that you could plug into your lineup, who's shown, especially at the AHL level, that he could play. We'll see if that translates into the NHL. For Miller, you mentioned that he struggled a lot in the playoffs. I'd argue he struggled a lot more than just the playoffs this year, and especially with turnovers. I think he was very irresponsible in his own end. I believe he was in the top 5 for most turnovers at 5-on-5 by defensemen in the NHL this year, which is a little bit concerning. Unfortunately, Adam Fox was also in the top 10 of that list. But either way, Miller this year turned the puck over a whole heck of a lot. Didn't seem very confident, especially down the stretch of the year in the defensive end. Too many turnovers, too many instances where he didn't really feel confident, or didn't look confident with the plays that he was making. He'd hesitate, and that's why he would end up turning the puck over. I think there's a silver lining in all this from the Rangers, because I think if you asked me in January how the Rangers are going to fit in K'Andre Miller and Alexi Lafreniere this offseason, I would tell you that it would take moving mountains to be able to do so. But I think Miller kind of played himself into a contract that really helped out the Rangers financially. Like I said, I think the year matches the AAV, whether it's 2x2 or 2x2.5, something along those lines, something where, obviously Miller's still young and can still prove himself. As for Lafreniere, I think this is a prove it year. I mean, it's been very disappointing in his first 3 seasons in the NHL. I pulled up this stat out of from the year that he was drafted to this year. Among first-round draft picks, Alexis Lafreniere is 33rd on that list for points per game among those players, which, is something for a guy that was considered to be compared to Sidney Crosby. Nothing more, and I will say this very loosely, I could walk it back at any time. It's abject failure through the first 3 years. You want to talk about guys like Jack Hughes that were first overall picks that are finding it in year 3 and year 4. What frustrates me the most with Lafreniere is you take a look at the playoffs this year. You look at a guy like Wyatt Johnston, who's 19, now 20 years old, a guy that was taken late first round pick that has just flourished into a guy during the regular season that was a key part for this Dallas Stars team. And during the playoffs, he scored key goals and played big minutes. And unfortunately, there's a lot of guys around this league that are, Lafreniere's age and younger that were drafted after him that are making bigger impacts in the league right now. I think when you look at him from a contract perspective, again, I think 2x2 or 1x1, depending on what the Rangers can do and, what Lafreniere would agree to. But, I know this segment isn't supposed to be a Italian evaluation, but being able to see some of the younger guys that have flourished in the league, it has just been utterly disappointing watching Alexis Lafreniere over the past 3 years on this team. But, hopefully the turnaround in year 4, and we'll see what he's got this year.
I agree. I mean, it's one of the things about Spencer Carberry is that the Rangers are looking to get more out of their kids. They need to. I did write today on ForeverBlueShirts.com that if they are talking to a guy like that, that's probably the main reason is because they think that he could reach a guy like Lafreniere, right? And try and get him to that next level. So, I mean, it certainly is interesting. But it's also on Laf. Like, he did get plenty of opportunities, man. Do we want to blame Gallant? I think Gallant should shoulder some blame for how he was utilized or, limited power play time. He's a skill guy. You're putting him in front of the net. I get it. Who is he going to replace on one of the wings, right? To show off his skill. He's going to replace Patrick Kane, Zibanejad, Panarin. No, I mean, he's just in a situation where there's just too much in front of him. Like, you have Kreider, you have Panarin. Unless Laf is going to start banging in 70, 80 points, he's not moving up ahead of any of those guys. Right. And how does he do that without playing 20 minutes and seeing if he can do it? It's tough. But there are too many games where he's just a non-factor, where he could be going to the middle of the ice, could go to the high danger areas, and he's not doing it. The other thing, too, is he's playing with Filip Chytil. And I like Chytil, but Chytil's not a puck distributor. He's more of a shooter. So it's like, okay, is that the right mix? I just feel like, and then what's funny is aside from Chytil, they're always constantly deferring to each other. I think the whole team likes to defer to each other because the whole pass thing, it's just maddening. But I agree with you. It's time. It's time for Laf. It's time for Kakko. It's time for those two, particularly because they were first and second overall, to step up. And that's what this team needs because they don't have any money.
No, not even in the slightest. And this is going to segue perfectly into the next question, talking about filling some holes in free agency, mainly on the wings. Obviously, we mentioned Tyler Mott is an option. He would like to re-sign. I would assume that the team would like to re-sign him as well. You gave your Jesper Fast, but I mean, I guess outside of this organization, and I guess now other than Jesper Fast, who would you like to see the Rangers target?
This is so difficult because the Rangers need a bargain. That's really what the Rangers need. And even if they want to bring in, let's just say Kakko is going to get either the first or second line right wing responsibilities. I don't know if Lafreniere being put over to the right side is an option. Personally, I know that Gallant was that's one of the problems with Gallant too, is like he He just didn't want to do it. Like he's such a like he loves his veterans, and Kreider deserved his accolades for what the season he had before, but he should have been like, sorry, Chris, but you're playing right wing on Zibanejad's line, and you need to figure it out as the veteran because we need to get this kid more ice time. We've got to develop this talent. And he tried that. It went on and off. And then he tried Loft there, and Loft wasn't comfortable there. And here we are back at, well, what are we going to do? I think I still would like to see maybe Kreider make that switch, regardless of however this breaks down. And that's why I'm saying Jesper Fast, as one of the wingers on the right side. Hey, maybe Brennan Othmann should get a chance as the third line left wing for a little bit, get at least a look, right? Heading into next season. He's that talented, but you need to get, if you're going to put a rookie like Othmann out there, then Fast is like, you need to have Fast out there as a security blanket. That's why I'm saying, and that makes sense from a money standpoint. I still think you're probably looking at Goodrow having to be moved no matter what. But if the Rangers aren't going to make these moves and they're going to keep Lafreniere, on the third line left wing, then you need somebody like a Gustav Nyquist to with some experience, maybe get him as a bargain because he's coming off. He's got a shoulder issue situation. So you might get him for a bargain for maybe a 1-year deal. There's another name that's coming off another major injury. You're taking a complete chance. Anybody who signs him he's going to have to sign a show me deal. And I don't know if he can play right wing. I'm sure he can, but I'm thinking Max Pacioretty. That's one name that no one's talking about. And who knows, maybe his career is over after 2 back-to-back torn Achilles tendon injuries. But that's one guy that if you're running it late in free agency and no one's signing him, maybe you sign him to 1 year at, $2 million or maybe whatever cockamamie thing I could come up with some signing bonuses. But maybe there is something there. Your thoughts? What do you think?
Unfortunately, Ranger fans, I know we love the sexy trade, the sexy signing, the big name. Unfortunately, first of all, I don't think the Rangers can afford the sexy signing this offseason. But at the same time, they don't need the sexy signing this offseason. They're a team that is built at the top and their bottom 6 needs to be bolstered. And what beat them this year was the fact that they couldn't get in. They got hemmed into their own zone. They couldn't get wingers that got the puck out of the zone, off the glass and out, and caused them to be hemmed into their own zone. I think a guy that I had my eyes on. I had really had my eyes on 2 guys. It's Garnet Hathaway out of Boston. He makes $1.5 million. He's 31 years old. He is the most Boston player that you could think of. He's a guy that's going to be hard on forechecks. He's going to hit. He's going to be defensively responsible in his own zone. And if you're going to play him on the third line or fourth line, then he's going to be able to create some offense as well just by being defensively sound. You want to talk about a third line next year of possibly Brennan Othmann, Philip Hedl, and Garnet Hathaway. Hathaway's the guy that's going to go into the corner and work for pucks and be able to get pucks out for Hedl and Othmann to do their thing offensively. The other guy I had in mind is David Kampf out of Toronto. He's a center. It's more unlikely. But just another guy who's really defensively responsible and who can make the players around him play a little bit more loose. I know the guys in Toronto really love David Kampf. The one thing I heard of is Kampf was their defensive center until they realized that they had a defensive center in Ryan O'Reilly when they traded for him this year. Kampf is more unlikely than Garnet Hathaway, especially because the Rangers need to bolster that right wing position this offseason. And maybe you run a third and fourth line of Tyler Mott and Garnet Hathaway. And I think that's, the grit and speed and all around being able to keep a forecheck going. Those are the 2 guys that I think do the best job at it at that position.
All right, everyone. And you all saw who did their homework and who didn't. It was definitely me that didn't do any homework. Very well.
I'll give it a chance. This is a completely off the cuff question. Never wrote it down, didn't research it all. And it's purely an opinion based question as we wrap this up. This season, looking back, your favorite memory, favorite game, favorite moment of the season?
With one Stanley Cup in 83 years, I have none. uh, my favorite moment of the season. Oh, that is a tough one. I don't have a favorite moment because let's just be honest, they didn't win. They didn't look good. I would say the the best moment of the season was the Jacob Trouba helmet toss. And the only reason why I say that is because if anyone doubted Trouba being chosen as captain, there was your reason why it was the right choice. Because the team did turn it around after that. It was a big deal. And for a guy who really loves and relishes the role, and I mean read books, talked to people about becoming captain and sought out advice to become the best captain possible. I thought it was really, really good to see. And I got to be honest, I'll throw this out there since you brought it and you put it in my mind. In 2024, both Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider are their full no move clauses become modified no trade clauses. So they have to provide lists. I do not believe the Rangers are going to trade them both. I do believe that Kreider is the one they'll choose to let go because of the fact that they have so many forwards and because Trouba is the captain. And I just think they'll stick with him a little bit longer than they will Kreider. And they'll take that $6.5 million that Kreider has and they'll use it to hopefully pay Kakko his next big contract, or, Lafreniere, hopefully his next big contract. They'll take that money and they'll give it to those kids who are going to be the future of the franchise for the next 10 years. Or maybe Othman. What am I talking about? Maybe Othman's is just that House of Fire, Jason Robertson type, right? And that I think Craig Button said that's the player who Othman reminds me of, Jason Robertson. Jason Robertson's outstanding over there in Dallas. If he's anything close to Jason Robertson, I'm going to do backflips. So that's how I would put it. I don't know if you have a favorite moment. Maybe you do, but I'd love to hear what yours is.
Yeah, selfishly pulling back the curtain. So I live in Louisiana. I don't live anywhere in the New York, New Jersey area. So I don't get to see the Rangers play really at all. I get to watch them maybe once a year when they come and visit Dallas. I know we just mentioned Jason Robertson. And for me, that game that they played this year back in October in Dallas has to be the highlight for me. I mean, both years that I've watched the Rangers in Dallas, they've gone down 1-0 within the first, I want to say, 2 minutes of each game. And I'm kind of sitting there among Dallas Stars fans. And don't get me wrong, the Ranger fans travel well, but sitting amongst the Dallas Stars fans in the first minute of both games, having to, be ridiculed for being a Ranger fan was not fun. But, last year or 2021, they won 7-4 or something like that. This year, they won 6-3, and Julian Gauthier scoring that goal. I know he's not part of the team anymore, but for a guy that never hit the net or struggled to put the puck in the back of the net to score a goal like that, Shesterkin was able to settle down in that game. But being able to see the team live is just something that when I lived in New York and New Jersey, I took for granted, just because Madison Square Garden is all of 45 minutes to an hour away from where I grew up. But now, obviously, being able to see them once a year, it makes it a little bit more special to be able to watch them. And then, obviously, the Stars game at Madison Square Garden was something completely different than the other two Stars games. It was a low-scoring game that ended up with Miller tying the game, and Fox obviously winning it overtime. So I think just living down here, I think those two Stars games for me have to be the highlight of the season. But like you mentioned, it was a year that didn't end not only in a Stanley Cup, but not being able to get out of the first round. So it's hard to look at this season without just wanting to forget about it. And Pete Blackburn on Twitter actually posted something after the Bruins lost in Game 7. And I'm not comparing the Rangers and Bruins at all. Their two seasons are two very different things. But he mentioned that, after the Bruins loss, he wants to erase every single memory of that team. And to be honest, that's kind of the way I've thought about it. Any memory of this team this year just needs to go. It was not a fun season, not a good season, but something that can be learned from in the future.
Hard to learn from it if you forget about it, though. So maybe
That is
we
true.
can forget
Yeah.
about it, but they better not forget about it. By the way,
Yeah,
that
I'll
Dallas
forget
Stars
about it.
game,
They need to remember.
that Dallas Star games was also Zach Jones' first NHL goal. So
Yes.
maybe that's some foreshadowing. Maybe Zach Jones is going to be the third pair left defenseman with Brady Schneider. Who knows?
My favorite part of that was watching Niels Lundqvist skate around during pregame and obviously playing in that game, just waiting for him to score. Just the doom and gloom waiting for him to score because of course the ex-Ranger in his first game against the team would find the back of the net. Luckily didn't happen, but a fun game nonetheless.
Awesome.
All right, Anthony, it was definitely fun. Again, sorry we couldn't get some of the bigger names that you're used to when we put out videos
My
like
fault.
this, but but looking at the Rangers season, I think it was very important, and we'll be back throughout the off season with draft coverage, free agent stuff, and read more about it on foreverblueshirts.com. There's plenty of content that'll keep you busy for days on end. Isn't that right, Anthony?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for reading foreverblueshirts.com this past season. Also for checking out the dailygoalhorn.com, where all our NHL stuff is. I just want to say thanks again, and also wanted to let everyone know season's over, but we don't stop. It's even more work. Like all this is a wrap-up video, and we'll be planning what the next video is in the next coming weeks, and hopefully we'll get a guest who could break down the season or look ahead to the Rangers a little bit better than I can, that's for sure. But definitely want to say thanks to everyone and for also tuning in and subscribing to Forever Blue Shirts TV. I'll say it, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It goes a long way and helps us deliver more content like this. And by the way, Steven, you're awesome at this. You should do this for a living.
I know. I listen. There's a reason I'm here in Louisiana. I won't pull back the curtain too much. You can find that out, on Twitter or social media or something of what I do in my free time. But either way, yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for reading everything this year and just engaging with all this stuff. And Anthony, thank you very much for doing this. Guys who are watching and girls who are watching, thank you very much for watching this video. And hopefully we'll have more down the line. So thank you very much. This has been another production of Forever Blue Shirts TV.